This podcast is protected under the laws of the United States and other countries. Unauthorized duplication, distribution, or exhibition may result in civil liability, criminal prosecution, and the wrath of the tall man.
Boy!
Thanks for checking out 90 for Chill, the podcast, and this is where I'd like to give my context warning, trigger warnings, what have you. But I think we're pretty clean on this one in this discussion of Spinal Tap with some very well-behaved guests. So I hope you enjoy.
Little Hand says it's time to rock and roll.
Bring the noise.
And I hope we've all had a great Halloween week. Me, well, it's primarily just doing this podcast, and no trick-or-treaters made that easy, so thank you for living in the lesser neighborhoods of Champaign-Urbana. But I digress about that experience. This is your host, Cool Movies Darth is the handle that I try to get over. You can follow what I'm watching on Letterboxd. The username is CMDarth. Otherwise, if you need to fill your home with the dulcet tones of CMDarth, you can just ask your Google Nest or Amazon Echo device to play Podcasts by Russ Stevens, and that should give you the latest stuff. And this week, this is the first international episode. We haven't gone intercontinental yet, but we'll be working on it. Surely there's somebody who speaks decent English in Brazil, I suppose. But my guest this week is from Alberta. That would be Rambling Ronnie from the Rambling Ronnie podcast. And to give me some extra backup on this one, I bring back the Poetic Critic. That's the Poetic Critic on Letterboxd to give some insight. So we got the history, we got the commentary. I think this is one of the best episodes that we have done so far. So, with that said, I am looking for guests to record an episode that will be released on the 22nd of November. If you want to be on that show, send me an email to russthebus07@gmail.com. That's RUSSTHEBUS07@gmail.com. And offer me a movie, a theme, a director, an actor. Try to focus on sub 100-minute material, but I can work with anything, so I'd love to hear back from you. Again, that email's russthebus07@gmail.com. If you want to talk about the podcast in a negative light, go to Twitter. I'll join Elon Musk with that one. And if you want to help the podcast out, give us those 5-star reviews on your favorite podcast apps and subscribe wherever you'd like to subscribe. So with that all said, we are going to straddle that fine line between cleverness and stupidity with Rob Reiners and Christopher Guest. This is Spinal Tap.
Very delicate. It's a bit of a departure from the kind of thing you normally play. What do you call this?
Well, this piece is called Lick My Love Pump.
This is the loudest, rock and roll, most explosive band in heavy metal history. This is Spinal Tap.
There's such a fine line between stupid and clever.
The funniest movie ever made about rock and roll.
He choked on vomit. Well, they can't prove whose vomit it was.
The monumental classic.
There was a Stone Age monument on the stage that was in danger of being crushed by a dwarf.
The makeup of your audience seems to be young boys.
Oh, it's a sexual thing, really.
We've got, armadillos in our trousers. I mean, it's really quite frightening.
No, don't.
I was just pointing at it.
Well, don't point. I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
The cult phenomenon.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
This is Spinal Tap.
All right, there's the eerie voice that's worse than Siri, and we bring, I like to bring the Poetic Critic on because of that near scene for scene knowledge she possesses. So this is 90 for Chill, the podcast. This week we're discussing This Is Spinal Tap. There's been a lot of thises so far in this introduction. And with me from the Rambling Ronnie podcast is the one Rambling Ronnie.
Hello, it's me. Hi, everyone.
Hello. And great episode. I think your most recent episode was the Life of Brian one, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Thank you for shouting that out. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yes.
So all right, yeah. So my sister and I, we've pretty much been basically, I would say Monty Python was on PBS, hence my mom, public broadcasting. And my mom thought, well, if it's on PBS, it's cultured. So he kind of let us watch it.
That's amazing. I'm kind of jealous.
Right. So so I would be 9. Rory would be about 11 when all this is happening. Oh gosh, I don't even want to think about the effect it had on my littlest brother. Like wrestling tournaments, no, it's not the place to recite the Hungarian phrase book sketch. So
when it was on in the late 80s and Mom and Dad did those tapings, that was back when MTV was running it for a little while.
Okay.
There was a time around 86, 87, I want to say, where that was about the time they were starting to diversify the schedule on MTV.
So Monty Python's responsible for the end of music on MTV.
Well, not really, because they brought it in to go so they'd have something to play into or out of the young ones, which they had imported.
Mm. Yeah.
For those not familiar with what the young ones was, that was a mid 1980s sitcom that about basically 4 young would-be punks. That was a combination of satirical and surreal humor. And one thing it had was they would have musical guests worked into the episodes.
I've seen the Ace of Spades episode shared many a time. So
it was partially a way of getting a bigger budget for the show, because it technically qualified as a variety program if you brought in musical guests.
Okay.
But it only ran for 2 seasons, but it was pretty heavily imported into the US. CBS Fox, which had the video contract with the BBC at the time, it brought in the whole released the whole thing on VHS.
So yeah, then I guess the British comedy is okay for kids would start with Red Dwarf. Then since that was shown on PBS. And funny, it's like Peoria is actually the largest market for the Red Green show in this United States. So, and but we still had the feed out of the University of Illinois public broadcast at the time. So
yeah,
we'd watch Red Green lead into Red Dwarf, and hence where our humor came from to an extent. So this would have to be one of the first R-rated movies my older sister had probably rented.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, you guys had a lot of...
Well,
sorry, I was going to say, you guys had a lot of exposure to different things. Like for me, being up in Canada, it's so different with our broadcasting and stuff. But I was going to ask, like the young ones, would you say it's almost like a funny satirical version of Kids Incorporated or something in a way?
Oh,
or is
no,
it more
no,
like...
no.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah,
so it's just more like musical guests would come on, but the actual, there was a show kind of thing. Like...
Yes, there was a narrative.
Well, typical episode is one where the guys try to track down one of the movies that got on the UK's infamous Video Nasty list.
I'll have to look it up because I haven't seen that. So
I've seen a lot of clips and those are funny. I would say one time back with my old best friend, we tried watching the young runs, and yeah, it was funny, but it's the humor a lot of times just so obvious, not very clever, but it does it when you step back and look at it, it's like these are, as Rory said, 3 punks. It's kind of like, well, it's really all ranges of punk. You kind of got your mod, you got your definite stereotypical mohawk and piercings everywhere guy, and just I would say just an anti-conformist, intellectual, I should say. So it's a show I really got to give more of a chance to. So things I could have done instead of finishing the first season of Harley Quinn last night. So
Well, but like you said, it's like looking back on the things that influenced us as we were kids that developed our humor. And that was a part of the Life of Brian thing. Because for me, my dad he would randomly sing like always look on the bright side of life. And I was like, I didn't know what he was talking about. And then I finally watched it and I was like, and even the first time watching it, I was kind of like, this is funny. But Monty Python, I'd always have to watch a few times as I was developing my humor and then realizing why it's funny, like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, really the only things off limits in terms of Python for us were the last two movies, Meaning of Life and Life of Brian. Meaning of Life, there's obvious reasons you don't show that to a kid. And there's the obvious reasons of Life of Brian you don't show it to kids. But on the flip side, like, I don't know, my adventures towards atheism, I would say kind of Monty Python kind of helped with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but and when it comes, so this is what partially probably what's the brilliance of Spinal Tap. And I know Christopher Guest, I think, has a lordship or something over in England.
Yeah.
I guess since he's married to Jamie Lee Curtis, he can't officially serve the role, but he's in line or something along those lines.
I was trying to read and understand that, and I couldn't figure it out because I'm like, I don't get all that stuff. But there was something in, I think, the 2000s. There's some technical thing that happened that changed all of that, I think. I don't know if it is because of him being married to her or it was some other specific thing that. Sorry, I'm like, I know I was reading about it, but it was so much my brain almost exploded trying to understand because I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, a lot of my knowledge comes from Wikipedia, so you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
About that, and that's probably one of those weird just trying to not push on the clickbait story about like showing celebrity faces and these celebrities are trans, and it's like, yeah, I definitely trust Wikipedia over the Amazon ad.
Wikipedia gets a bad rap because it's like, yeah, you can't use it for a dissertation, but you can if you take the sources that are listed stuff. So, and you're getting the basic outline of information that's out there. So
yeah. just push the end button on your laptop and you get all the good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I guess that's probably where Christopher Guest's humor came from. I mean, the British influence on that. But then again, Michael McKean, definitely Harry Shearer, and Christopher Guest were all known for weird sketches, like on Saturday Night Live, the synchronized swimmer sketch. So there's definitely a obvious influence on from the Brits on these three guys. So I guess with that, I'll just jump right into the this isn't the first rockumentary, I would dare say. I guess you'd have to go with the Ruddles, All You Need Is Cash, which again,
the Ruddles is the earliest one I think anybody's familiar with. There might have been examples before that. And famously, that was a US-UK co-production because although Eric Idle was developing it for British television, because it was a spin-off from his show Rutland Weekend Television, which was one of his first post-Monty Python projects, Lorne Michaels and company, they offered more money.
Oh, so you have cameos from Bill Murray, excellent
because
John
by that
Belushi
point,
bit.
Idle had been on Saturday Night Live a few times, and the first time he appeared, I think it was the first time he made an appearance, they showed the Ruddles sketch from Rutland Weekend Television as like in interstitial. It was that or the parody of Tommy he did around the same time from that show, and which if you track that down online, it is truly brilliant. And Idle was proud of it, but the Runnels was a bit more accessible conceptually. In any case, it was a big hit. So and Idol was by this point getting to know the American comics pretty well. So when they heard about the Runnels project, Lorne Michaels said, if you do it for NBC, we can get you a bigger budget than you have otherwise. And that's how it worked out. When it originally ran on TV in the Saturday Night Live time slot as a special, and it didn't do very well and if I remember correctly, it didn't do well in the ratings, but the repeat did.
That's interesting. I imagine what WWF could have done if they got repeats of Saturday Night Main Event for those weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back in the day when things weren't as accessible, so it's like, I want to watch this, but now I can't. We didn't have the internet, so then you just wait for it to come back on TV again or something.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I never read the Articles of TV Guide. That's more of my sister's thing. She also listens to a podcast dedicated to individual weekly issues of TV Guide.
Yes, that's Ken Reed's TV guidance counselor, though it really just uses the TV guides as the jumping off point for him and the guests to shoot the breeze about their careers.
Right. Yeah, people like Joe Bob.
But also what TV was at the time.
Right. People like Joe Bob Briggs. Pete Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mark Maron. So, I mean, if you can get him on your podcast, you're legit. So, right. So, yeah. So we're to the point, at least in my peripheral, where we're, they're going over the reviews of Spinal Tap albums. and to Tap's credit, they only reviewed 3 of the 15 albums. So Shark Sandwich.
That part just kills me so much.
You can't you can't you can't say that. You can't print that.
Yeah, when they're like, because he said the reviews of all the other ones. I wrote it down, and sorry if you can hear my paper shuffling.
No worries.
But my notes are so indecipherable. But yeah, the part when they're like, and they just said 2 words for this review: shit sandwich for the shark sandwich. And
yes.
I think the actors because it's all improv, and I think they actually broke and were laughing at that point and trying not to.
Right. Yeah. So I know Rob Reiner's the director. Was the layout done by Christopher Guest, or was it a total?
Basically, the members of the group and Reiner put together some basic situations they were going to riff on and let the other performers riff on. They basically just gave rough outlines for what they'd be doing. And like, if you look at, there are many, many deleted scenes for this film because they shot hours of footage that they could have used. Apparently there's a ton more footage of Bruno Kirby talking about the Rat Pack, for instance.
Right. Yeah, it should have been called, if as long as Frank says I can.
Have you guys watched watch the movie with the DVD, like the commentary from the 3 guys? Oh my god!
I have seen the in-character commentary.
Yeah,
that's not the only one they did.
Yeah, I saw.
Because originally the DVD was a Criterion edition that was carrying on from the Laserdisc they did back in the 90s, and in that version of the extras, people speak out of character. So and unfortunately, that was one of the very first Criterion DVD releases, and it went out of print rather quickly. So it's very hard to track down because with the current release that MGM first brought out around 2000, it's all in character.
Yeah, that's the one that I have. It just has the one option for the DVD commentary. And it's hysterical, though. It's so good.
Yes.
Well, let me just put it out there. With eBay, I was able to pick up the Life of Brian Criterion Collection DVD, and I think that one went out of print pretty quick. For under 20.
I believe that one was able to carry out over most of the bonus features to later releases.
Okay, yeah.
But bonus features often do have their own copyrights on them, so they're not easily transferred from label to label. There's a lot of Criterion bonus features that haven't appeared on other formats.
Well, and you could say that being a Miyazaki fan with G Kids versus the original,
right? The
Vista,
original Disney import version.
Right. Yeah. Righty. So, when you think of Spinal Tap, I guess it's kind of like, I would say the music itself is deep purple with an 80s metal aesthetic.
Depends which era.
Well, I mean, that's something I noticed. We didn't give enough love to Viv Savage in this movie, the keyboardist.
There's one part when he's like doing his thing, and in the commentary they're like, he wasn't even actually playing it or something. But yeah, the part when it's the heavy duty, I think, rock and roll, and he's like looking all crazy and has the thing on his head and stuff. He's great.
So, I don't know though. Just another note, like, the Thamesmen. I mean, now that's a very mod name, but I don't know. Kind of. It wouldn't have carried over to the States. So, and thinking like, geez, Michael McKean and Christopher Guest's accent. Now Harry Shearer. Like, you can't have too much dialogue from him because he will drop the accent.
Yeah.
But I guess this movie, just going through my notes again, it's like, does it establish the Michael McKean as an authority figure character? Because at this point, I thought he was just Laverne and Shirley. He wasn't Squiggy.
He was Lenny.
Yeah. Yeah, Lenny. The only other thing I saw before Spinal Tap wise would be his bit in Used Cars.
Right.
So, I mean, we could definitely tell that David St. Hubbins was trying to be the leader of the band.
Yeah.
Throughout.
It's got to be that lead singer complex, if that's a thing,
Mm-hmm. Well,
but yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I actually got to say this because I'm just planning to go and review a bunch of music themed movies for the episode on the 1st of November, and then drop this on the 8th. And recently rewatched Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
I saw that on your Letterboxd.
Yes. And it's I don't know, I just love the fact how it takes the piss out of all these, because like somehow I always end up visiting my parents, and like the last 20 to 40 minutes of Bohemian Rhapsody is on. It's kind of like,
yeah, it's on FX. They show that movie.
And it's like,
well, that's the whole joke of a big joke in the Honest Trailers video they did for Bohemian Rhapsody is they just run clips from that movie alongside all the corresponding clips from Walk Hard.
Oh, right.
Freddie Mercury's got to think about his whole life before he goes on stage.
All right. So on it, that's definitely on the YouTube queue. But
I need to look that up.
It's basically, for me, it's like that movie is only 3 years after Johnny Cash died, and it's kind of, I don't want to celebrate it yet. And when it comes to Bohemian Rhapsody, I'm watching like the last 40 minutes, like, as somebody who's Queen is my favorite group, as somebody who's like, no, I know the timeline. They didn't do all this stuff until, Freddie didn't drop the AIDS bomb until after Live Aid. Probably not until, and like, Queen all songs will be written by Queen. No, you still have 2 albums before that happens. It's kind of like, I just don't, if I'm really a fan of something, it's like, I don't want to see the fictionalized. Never mind the fact that I kind of grew from following Queen. It's like, Freddie was not the end all be all of the group.
Right. Well, when I look at, biopics, I'm more forgiving of artistic license. I mean, my favorite biopic ever, is Man on the Moon. And that actually opens with the main character telling you this movie uses a lot of artistic license right off the bat.
Right. Yeah. But there's a reason why it's still got the comedy. Okay, actually, did Carrie win the Oscar? I mean, not the Oscar. That's not going to happen. Sorry, Canada. The Golden Globe for best drama, or was it best comedy?
It was best comedy, although Carrie said straight up in the acceptance speech, I thought I did a drama, but I'll take it.
Yes, but I will say that it made it a point to still be funny, as in, and
well,
God knows Andy Kaufman wouldn't. I mean, Andy Kaufman is basically the military sergeant from Monty Python, Grant Chapman. Stop that! It's silly. I'm a bit suspect. So,
yeah, I definitely feel like that. There's certain biopics that it's missing that heart almost. It's almost like a timeline just with someone who really represents the person, but it's not getting to the meat of the people, if that.
I'm not denying Reese Witherspoon her Oscar. But that's still,
like,
I
the
think,
complaint you often hear about a lot of biopics these days, the standard issue ones like Bohemian Rhapsody or that, is that, well, it's just an illustrated Wikipedia article. And then he wrote, and I prefer the ones more like the work of Alexander and Kierzewski, the writers who did Ed Wood and The People versus Larry Flint and Man on the Moon, and they take that freer approach to it, where you're trying to have fun with it. And in Man on the Moon, you're admitting that we're not going to have all this shorthand to explain why Andy Kaufman did all this. As Roger Ebert said, if you could have explained it, you wouldn't have wanted to make the movie.
Right.
But then you look at, but it's not easy to pull off a stylized biopic. One that I don't think worked was Life and Death of Peter Sellers, which was an HBO movie from 2004 with Jeffrey Rush. And that was trying to stylize things all get out to make whatever point it wanted, but it wasn't very satisfying, partially because it's the kind of showbiz biopic that doesn't really care about the art, but just how miserable the person was and off screen. It doesn't seem to. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, it's like it's almost the two extremes. Like you're either trying to show what a tragic character they are, or just the Wikipedia glossing over. It's like there's the mix of it. Like there's the things that you kind of want to know about what motivated them and pushed them and helped get them to be where they are, and it's not all just tragedy, I guess. But
yeah, and I think Alexander and Kierzewski could kind of thread that needle in their films.
Well, again, though, it's subject matter to an extent, like Andy Kaufman and and I mean, if you take Larry Flint serious for a moment, it's like you're gonna feel very dirty after that movie.
Well, part of it is that, as Alexander and Kierzewski put it, these were the typical biopic for so long was the great man, and it was usually a man. And they wanted to do movies about people who that kind of didn't deserve biopics in the traditional sense that we knew them up to that point. And what happens with stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, and that is people go in expecting the great man approach,
right?
Kind of that romanticized person everybody loves. And they were trying to do movies for people who didn't have that were outsiders and misfits more. And you could actually take that approach to people like Freddie Mercury, but oftentimes because you are dealing with estates and you are dealing with surviving family members and such, it's very tough to do.
So so hail to the Bolsheviks. Like, we'll tell the right story about the czars of Russia. We'll get rid of the estate. It's like how I say with college mascots in the it's like, well, yeah, of course you can have the USC Trojans. They were all wiped out. There's nobody to complain about that. No, you can't have the Cleveland now Guardians, because we didn't do a good enough job with our genocides, I guess.
Well, I've been thinking.
Continue. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, speaking of mascots, that this is kind of a tangent, but I saw that oh my God, names are escaping me. Christopher Guest has a show. I think it's a show or something
It
called
was on,
Mascots.
yeah, I think it was on
Yeah.
Hulu a few years ago.
Okay.
Back when they were trying to come up with original content, before the Disney machine totally overran it.
Mm-hmm.
How about you guys? Either of you guys watched it at all, or?
I never got around to
I'm
it.
not a sports person, so
yeah.
I wasn't sure how it would be because it looks like it's almost like a mockumentary thing about people being mascots or something.
Right.
So I'm just like, I'm curious how silly they get with that one.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know how it works up in Canada, if they have Hulu or if it's a Disney subsidiary. Because I know, like, I think Rory's explained it to me. Like, oh no, it's like basically that's R-rated Disney Channel.
Yeah,
over Disney Plus.
It's so hard for me to translate. Like, I just have to Google where I can find shows in Canada because it's like I watch a lot of RuPaul's Drag Race, and there's so many franchises of it, and they're on different platforms, and it's so annoying.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm a socialist. Hopefully, one day communism, and in the Star Trek sense, will will soon reign. But yeah, I mean, I've always kind of admired the Canadian system of always insisting on some kind of public ownership, or if something no, it has to be Canadian. Like I hear like the Nerdist podcast, now the ID10T podcast with Chris Hardwick. He actually was able to get Rick Moranis on the show.
Oh wow, I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, so that's ID10T, and at one point he was saying like, okay, so this is what we're filming for SCTV that we're gonna air air in the States. So we still got like 15 minutes where we got to be very Canadian. And it's like,
yeah, that's the whole reason we have Bob and Doug McKenzie, was because back when the show, even before it was going to be shown in the US, the board said you have to have so much Canadian content in the show. So the response was just come up with the worst stereotype you can imagine of Canadian people and do that for 2 minutes.
So yeah, Rick Moranis put it like, so you want us to do put on some toques and fry some back bacon?
Yeah. Have a cup of maple syrup. Yeah. Go out to the tree and tap it.
Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, trying to catch up with the movie now. So bits of like, well, we just actually, my favorite bit, and I still have to buy a cricket bat. Especially like that's something I should have done like at the beginning of my wrestling career, especially when I was playing the Anglophile, picking on the wrestlers who were obviously of Irish heritage. Like,
yeah,
I had a broken wrist. I was on commentary, and it's like, well, you could tell he's oh, you're saying that he got into the ring sober? If it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it's a drunk. Like, that cricket bat would have been nice.
That's just great when you see the like whole little montage thing of Ian with his
because that almost comes out of nowhere and how broad a bit of comedy it is. I mean, it's straight slapstick.
Yes, that's
almost literally.
No, it's the beauty of this movie. It is a like, I've been seeing my letterbox. It's like, gosh, well, and truthfully, it's a lot like I'm still trying to go to movies I'd want to watch. Hence why it's a little heavy on the positive side, not so much on the negative side. So I'm trying to be a little more like, yeah, I'm sorry, Frankenstein 4.5. It's the entire body, Frankenstein's body falling on the windmill. I mean, it's fun, and like I hope I'm sure Peter Jackson used that when he killed Christopher Lee off in Return of the King, but it's but yeah, you can't deny this is a perfect movie. There's really and you do get that variety of comedy, and you get these subtle bits like they're at Elvis's grave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, subtle bits. That's the thing. There's the scene. They're at the party, and everyone's got herpes. And I read in the trivia that they did try to, or initially had the idea of having like a girl group that were opening an opening act for them, and they were the ones that were giving them herpes or something. So it's like it's something you almost don't notice if you're not looking closely enough at their faces, because
Well, that's one of those like, okay, is that how our who was the drummer before Joe Mama?
Oh, the history of the drummers. I think I wrote down some of the names because one of the first ones was with the Tame guys, and it's God, my notes are awful. My apologies. Stumpy Peep. Who's the other? So I think it was Stumpy Peep or something, and he died from a gardening accident.
Yeah,
and they're
best left of that. Best left to leave that unsolved.
Yeah, unsolvable. Then Stumpy Joe, who choked on vomit, but it was someone else's.
Your Scotland Yard doesn't really have the means to track you.
Well, there's also, and they also, as confirmed, I looked at Wikipedia to confirm this. There's also the running gag. Some of them are, some of the names and nicknames are references to people who replaced Curly and the original Curly and the Three Stooges.
Yeah, no, that would explain Stumpy Joe.
Stumpy Joe and Joe Mama Besser, the current one we see in the
film.
film.
Shoot, I didn't. Yeah, now the Besser just really rings.
Yeah, Joe Besser.
Yeah, but no, I mean, we could have probably made today where I'd say 33%, at least in the States, of the population has herpes. You could have probably made a spontaneous, I don't know, could have made a PSA about that. Like, and herpes leads to spontaneous combustion because the drummer, it was Mick. I know his name was Mick. It's like, as long as it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, I don't care what I do as a job. I mean, as long as it's sex and drugs.
Yeah. And I mean, they've had 37 band members, so it's hard to keep track.
Yeah. Yeah, you're telling me this is the same as and I did document that that quote from the movie. You're saying that the loss of Nigel is the same as those people who were in the band for like a short period of time. I'm sure to feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation. Which does to kind of bring me up to, is it a little too formulaic to have a Yoko Ono type character in this movie?
Even at the time, I think that was starting to become cliche. The Ruddles, All You Need Is Cash, did that pretty effectively already. But it's so common a cliche in these kind of, in any even serious narratives about fictional groups, that there's a whole, if you go to TV tropes, there is a trope called Yoko Oh No that's solely for that kind of character.
Yeah. And I mean, like, from seeing how so many real band members, or real people who are musicians, for one, didn't even realize it was a mockumentary. They were like, wow, this is serious. And then they identified with it. They're like, this is so real. And I can see why it's such a dynamic, right? If you are in a relationship, you're going to have this person who seems like the whiny, cranky woman coming in to take over. But it's like, but she loves her person and wants to be with him. Well, but it's seen as this bad thing.
Oh, no. My time in the professional wrestling business. In downstate Illinois, so we're talking, anywhere from 2 to 3 hours south of Chicago. It happens all the time with promoters.
I can see it.
Like, what the heck? No, like, and then I'd even say though, in my own car driving around Iowa, Wisconsin, Illinois, like with my partner, my body piercer buddy Raul, it's like And I'm dealing with your drama with trying to manage women in this business. Like, so
I can't even imagine especially, I'm sure it's still similar, but especially back in the day, sex, drugs, rock and roll, there's a reason there's a term. And how are you supposed to feel secure when your man's probably out there touring and banging a bunch of women? So unfortunately, it seems like the nature.
That's one reason why the Me Too movement and the like has had a much harder time dealing with the music industry than some others.
Yeah.
Because it's so baked into the history of the form that we had the passing of Jerry Lee Lewis, and I think a lot of people aren't sure how to talk about that.
Well, everybody was positive on Chuck Berry. I mean, and it's like, yeah, you remember the cameras in the toilets, like, but and it's appropriate though we're talking about like the how this really translates. Like, this was very realistic in the sense that no band wants anything that happens to Spinal Tap to actually happen to them. And then there's so many cases of it. Like, we're getting out of the pods right now.
Yeah.
And
that scene just kills me.
And
every scene. It's one of those movies,
it did happen to YouTube eventually, where they couldn't get out of the giant lemon for their Zooropa World Tour.
That's so funny.
So yeah, and again, even as a wrestler, like somebody put in the back before computers did everything. It's like, oh well, and we're gonna put this. All right, this is your CD. Yeah, okay, I'll play that song. Wrong track.
Yeah.
Well, you remember when I was doing community theater in 1995. Now that I think of it, this had to have been around the time I first saw the movie, but I wasn't thinking of it. I was doing a community children's theater production of Cinderella in Peoria, and I was playing one of the stepsisters. This is the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, the one that they did the TV version of with Brandy and Whitney Houston once. It had a few versions. Well, we were doing the stage production, and near the end of the first act, the stepsisters come through this portal at the top of the stage and walk down a flight of steps, like it's a 2-story house set. And for some reason that particular day, they hadn't quite lined up the stairs with the doorway for me. So, and I'm coming out in the ball gown, and I'm finding I'm gonna have to squeeze through this because I realized it was a little too dangerous to try and back up. So the only thing I could do is push my way through the door, a half-sized doorway. And the whole audience is catching on something's going awry.
You see, I don't recall this, and I was like made into that's a thing. My father and I were.
I think that was the day you guys were working backstage. You were among the parents and siblings who were volunteering backstage on certain days, so you wouldn't have seen it.
Okay, good. It's like no.
But I'm pushing myself through the door, and I managed to get through okay. And the whole time, at least, I don't really have to worry about breaking character at any point. If anything, I'm already seeing the humor in it anyway, that she can't get through the door because she's wearing a gigantic dress. And so I get through the door, and I had to repeat my line after that, because just as I was starting to order Cinderella to give me, I think it was a purse, the audience is already applauding, so I have to wait a minute so we can go on with the scene.
I'm just like picturing it in my mind and trying to get through that doorway. You're just like, ah, and like it's probably so distracting because you're like, okay, nothing's going as it's supposed to. Like for me, I don't even know how to remember anything. I can barely remember my own name, so I can't imagine trying to remember lines and then having this interruptive moment.
Well, luckily it wasn't a complicated scene for me, so that wasn't the issue. I'm not even sure the audience realized anything was wrong. Well, I do know is that everybody backstage knew, and everybody loved me for it afterwards.
Well, I mean,
That's funny.
I mean, at least on the as I say, plenty of times wrong entrance music played, and it's like,
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes it's fine. Okay, yeah, I'll just come out to this. Like,
Well, I was part of, I was part of a whole chorus group that did an annual musical, at the Civic Center every year.
Caterpillar.
And I think they still do that, but they don't do that at the Civic Center anymore. But they actually have had an annual award since the 70s that they give at the post-show party for the person who had the best blooper during the run of the show.
Yeah.
Well, and it kind of the scene, which apparently there was another band, I can't remember. Maybe you guys read it too. It's probably on Wikipedia, but where they're trying to find how to get to the stage. And it's like,
Hello, Cleveland, which if you watch any Mystery Science Theater 3000, that and the Stonehenge.
Those were almost stock riffs after a while.
Nobody knew where they were from or what they were doing.
The Druids. And it just, this little thing comes down onto the stage.
Yes.
And that's when I first watched the movie with Russ, because we watched it together. When they were a few scenes before with Angelica Houston, who's writing down the plans for the prop, I remember pointing out,
yes,
wait, that's inches, that's not feet.
I caught that.
And then
too.
you get that huge payoff, so to speak.
It's not. No, it wasn't the arrangement. It was the fact that the Stonehenge was in fear of being trampled by dwarfs.
I really think Roger Ebert said that's the real punchline, is that they bring out the little people to try and make up for the prop.
Exactly. You're just like, can I laugh at this? Am I allowed to?
So with all this said, Ronnie, have you seen the so I think it was 1994 they did a 10-year
1992 I think was
Break Like the Wind.
1992 was when they did the Return of Spinal Tap special and the Break Like the Wind album.
No, I have not watched that.
Well, this was a made for cable special, was later on VHS, and they did an album along with it that had them doing a reunion show at Royal Albert Hall. And in that one, they finally get the right prop for the Stonehenge bit. But then you see that this time they didn't plan ahead for how they were going to get it through the freight doors at the theater, so it never actually gets on stage. It's because it's all prefab and built already, so they don't know how to get it.
So they're
inside.
doing their best to shove it through the semi doors, and
that's like real, right? That's not like it's a part of the bit of the show. It's like actually it was a real technicality.
No, it was a bit of they
okay.
And the special cuts between the two bits.
Yes, as the dwarves eventually make it on stage, just dancing around, and you're just seeing them trying to shove Stonehenge into Royal Albert Hall.
That's so funny.
But going back to the fact that everybody thought Spinal Tap was a real thing, it's like, I didn't know.
Part of it was that they simply went out on the road, and 1994 was when Return of Spinal Tap was released on video, but most of it was shot in 1992.
Yeah, the 10 years after the And you do get an update on the documentarian, the Rob Reiner's character.
Yeah, Marty DiBergi.
Yes, like, I ended up directing movies like Kramer versus Godzilla.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so I mean, with all that said, though, I would say, when you compare it, and I've only seen a couple of Christopher Guest mockumentaries, Waiting for Guffman and For Your Consideration. And this is still the largest scale of any of these mockumentaries, I would say.
Yeah. Of his work, anyway.
Have you guys watched A Mighty Wind?
I've not seen that one as yet.
I hadn't seen that either.
Best in Show.
Yeah.
Back in September, actually, Turner Classic Movies just did a night where they just programmed some of these movies. They did, in order, they did Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, and This Is Spinal Tap. And it was interesting because if you go on Twitter, there's an ongoing hashtag called TCM Party where people just drop in and tweet along to whatever's on TCM at the time. And there was pretty good turnout, as it were, for these movies. And it was interesting, especially with Waiting for Guffman. You were getting a lot of tweets talking about stuff like our own experiences with community theater.
Yeah,
and the verisimilitude of a lot of it. Because I'm pointing out at one point that when they get to the final third, where you actually see the Blaine pageant, and how constantly the actors, when they're speaking lines, are turning to the audience, even if that wouldn't be realistic. But then, as I pointed out, how else are they going to be heard in this, functional gymnasium space? They have to do that.
Yeah,
they're not being mic'd.
Right. And honestly, like, rewatching Spinal Tap, I had no clue. Like, obviously, Fred Willard, rest in peace.
So you are a Spinal Tap?
Yeah. I didn't know again, it's like he didn't really pick up a lot of, I don't know if he really became a thing until the Christopher Guest movies. Like, I mean, I know he'd been working, obviously, but, he's probably going to be best remembered as the president from WALL-E, I think, on a
For
mass
certain
scale.
generation. Yes.
Yeah. So it's like,
but he'd been working since the 70s on shows like Mary Hartman, and Fernwood Tonight with people like Martin Mull.
Right. Yeah.
But yes, Wikipedia actually has a heading on his page. It says it was the Guest films that led to sustained success for him.
And
and he's like going right till the end. Like, because have you guys seen the skit show or the show? I Think You Should Leave.
I have not watched it.
But I didn't realize he'd done work for it.
He well, it's more, I think it's just one skit that he's in, and it's a super random show. It's one of my favorites though, because it's just you're like, this is dumb, and then it just gets even dumber, and you're like, this is hilarious because it's so stupid. But so he's
We're
in a
all
scene.
trying to find the person who did this.
yeah, exactly that one. So. There's so many good ones I can't even pin. But he's at a funeral or something, and he's playing this crazy piano, Fred Willard, and he's playing this piano that has all these crazy bells and whistles on it, and he's smashing plates and stuff, and everyone's all somber, and he's like, okay, I'll do my next one. And it's like really random, but it's him being Fred Willard, silly, and even as he's older, and so he's so great. And like all those Christopher Guest movies, like they have, it's the improv, and especially when it's all like improv, it makes it even funnier. And then having the same people, and like, oh my god, you guys really have to watch A Mighty Wind. It's just like
well,
so
and
what?
it's just funny you're talking about
about A Mighty Wind. That one of the Folksmen, I think is their name, are played by the same members as Spinal Tap. Back when they were doing gigs as Spinal Tap in the early 80s, when they were developing the film, the Folkmen were the opening act.
Huh.
As you can imagine, they didn't get tons of appreciative responses from audiences.
But,
that would be great to watch.
Thinking about audiences, though, you do get that bit about why is your audience predominantly young white men? Do you think your music is racist? Oh no, it's not racist. No, we've never said it, but it's like, I mean, you can't expect women to come to our shows. I mean, we're carrying armadillos in our trousers. It's
or big cucumbers in
the airport, in foil.
It's in foil,
Yes. So, and then it's funny because it is essentially a college tour, this movie. They play Chapel Hill, which is North Carolina University of North Carolina, and Philly, yes, but then you get the joke like, okay, and they canceled Boston, but that's not a big college town, so. Yeah, bloody Harvard, UMass, yeah. So
Yeah. Well, and it's just so funny, right at the beginning, right off the hop, there's the lady with the shirt that's just like her shoulders and chest exposed pretty much. She's just like, I just feel like with the music, you connect with the band and you can connect and they connect with their audience and whatever. You're like,
oh,
okay.
well, I mean, again, coming from the wrestling business, so much of like I don't watch much WWE. So much of it's like, okay, what's the next documentary? And oh gosh, yeah, all right, and skip to the end, as they would say in space. Like yeah, it's this movie just nails so many things. And again, I as I said, I didn't know Spinal Tap was fake. Like even up to The Simpsons when they did their performance, it's like,
Yeah.
oh no, that sounds real. That sounds legit.
That's me too. I was like,
Like,
I didn't grow up watching it. And then
yeah.
when I did watch it, it confused me because I was like, what's happening? And then so it took me a while before I actually watched it through and
I
was like,
mean,
oh, I get it.
the sheer fact you have Fran Drescher, which I'm still kind of curious, what did she do between Spinal Tap in '84 and then UHF in '99? Because like I can't really remember anything for Fran Drescher aside from these cult movies. And
she's so great in it. In the it's so funny in the
commentary.
commentary.
A fair deal of film work in the '80s. She was in Dr. Detroit.
Okay. But like with that said, it's like it brings us to the entire MacGuffin, I think, of the movie, the album cover.
I don't think it's a MacGuffin, but it's like
red herring
running gag.
Yeah. But how offensive is the album cover? I mean, I've seen still some really bad stuff. And I guess
in mind that this is the early '80s and the moral majority is just the moral majority is on one side and the remnants of second wave feminism on the other side.
No, it's Reagan at its peak. Which is but it does lead us to did you see Duke Fame's album? Like they got all the women half clad and they're whipping him. Oh no, it's not offensive if they're doing it to themselves.
Yeah.
Oh well, there's such a fine line between stupid and clever.
Yeah, and she's saying how it's sexist, and he's like, "What's wrong with being
sexy?" And I just have a funny story about that one because they dropped that line in as a sample in on the album, the Super Suckers album, how the Super Suckers became the greatest rock band in the world, and the song is she's my bitch. And after they go into the guitar solo, after you get lyrics like she hates the Beatles and loves the Stones, but if she had her way, it'd be Ramones. She's my bitch. And then you get the guitar solo, and then you hear, oh, what's wrong with being sexy? And my friend though, who really introduced me to it, Stephanie, she was like, oh, that's the Who. You're like, do I tell you you're wrong? At the time I was kind of involved with her, so it's like, let her have it.
That's so great. And just random, just plopping that in there.
Right. So but then it's like when you spot these cameos, it's so bloody awesome, like the mime waiters.
Oh yes,
Billy Crystal as Mort the Mime and Dana Carvey. I mean, of course, you have this is only 2 years into Late Night with David Letterman, so you have Artie being played by Rory
Paul Schaefer.
Paul Schaefer. And, you got the guy from A View to a Kill as the Sir.
Patrick Macney.
Yes, as the Polymore record rep. And then you get that great bit where whatever happened to Spinal Tap, which is Harry Shearer on the radio after playing a Thamesman song.
Yeah. Yeah. That part.
Which is like, I mean, I don't know, like Harry Shearer, he does. I know he does Kent Brockman, Officer Wiggum.
Chief Wickham, yeah.
Yeah, Chief Wiggum. I mean, he can, like, he can only hold a voice. This movie shows he can only hold a voice for so long. That's, well, Hank Azaria can do it all on his own. But when I think of movies like Godzilla or Wayne's World 2, where Johnny Hamps, I can't remember his name, in Wayne's World 2 is the DJ, and then they expose the fact that just because you have a great voice doesn't mean you're gonna have the look to associate with it.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Mr. Scream? And you got the guy from Jefferson from Married with Children.
Well, I was kind of unsure, like when it was showing them back in like the Tamesman or whichever one, where I was like, I don't know if that's Harry Shearer and Christopher Guest as the two guys. Like you could tell it's Michael McKean, but the other two, I'm like, I don't think that's them when they're younger because they look different. Harry Shearer, especially, is all clean shaven and stuff. I was trying to Google to see who played those guys.
Oh no, I'll again, a Super Suckers lyric from another song, Devil's Food, you bet your booty and my left ball that it ain't no good until the good are appalled. So it's like, no, I'll do that. I'll take that bet. I'm 42. I don't they're not, if I'm using those, there's a problem. So so it's Mick Shrimpton's the drummer on this tour. So, I was just saw this hello, just before the Hello Cleveland Rock and Roll, you get the knocking on the door, and that's when they say, Shrimpton, Mr. Shrimpton, it's time to go on stage. And thinking other things about the audience though, and authentic stuff, it's like there's the bit where you even before there, and I'm saying Stonehenge play right now, is the dang, those dwarves are getting really close to it. That they have the entire you have people in the crowd shouting, play Stonehenge. And as a guy who goes to so many shows, and I prefer the smaller venues, so it's like, but smaller venues I'm probably drinking a bit more, so it's like I am going to punch the next asshole who says, like Reverend Horton Pete, bales of cocaine. Like, dude, you're just being you just might as well just say Freebird. Thank you very much, Ronnie, for watching the language, because last week's episode, like, I knew with booze, boobs, and blood, like, yeah, I'm just gonna have to, accept that we might drop some C words. And
yeah, I've been trying to edit myself a bit, but thankfully this doesn't like bring out too much energy for me that makes me start to swear.
Right. Yeah, it's, well, as I say, if it wasn't for the booze and their titles, it's like, well, that's, I got it. Or other times, like, I got a frequent guest, Gregory Carl, on the show, and like, oh, we're gonna go 10 minutes of wrestling before we're gonna talk about the movie. Okay, we'll cut and paste. At least I don't have to edit. Like, I'll tell people right ahead of time, if you want to listen to obscene wrestling commentary after the David Tennant soundbite, check out.
Yeah. Yeah. I just wanted to quickly, because I know this is totally like just kind of going back a bit, but talking about Billy Crystal as being the mime, and for one, just the mime is money. That's just really funny to me. He says that. But there's also a cut scene, I don't know if you guys have seen, where there's some guest that goes up to him and he's like saying, oh, hey, I've got a driver downstairs waiting for me. Could you go down and tell him I'm going to be a few minutes, blah, blah, blah. As the guy's talking, Billy Crystal's like, and miming what he's saying. And then once the guy stops talking, he's like, I'm not your like maid or whatever. Like, I'm not paid to do that. And he walks away from him, kind of thing. It's this funny little scene. There's all these like little outtakes of him as a mime that are really funny.
Well, I find that exceptionally funny because when I worked in at a hotel in Peoria, I actually had to check in a mime.
Oh, and they were in character kind of
Yep.
thing.
It's like, and he's starting to write stuff. No, I get it. I know what you're doing, man. In the meantime, like everybody else who's on the clock have just shrunk into the manager's office. Like they're leaving me to do this on my own.
And I hope there wasn't a lineup of irritated people
No,
waiting to check
there
in.
was not.
Okay,
Oh no,
that would
no,
be so
they,
stressful.
yes. Oh no, I get enough trouble with that because University of Illinois, where I'm living now in Champaign Urbana, has a huge Chinese student population. And I took 2 years of Mandarin in college. So it's like, and occasionally it works out like, all right, which is weird. It's one of those like, and I get that, got that a lot when I was doing roadside assistance for truck drivers. And God forbid you get somebody stuck in northeast Quebec. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I live in Western Canada, and unfortunately, they don't, even though we're bilingual, they don't have a culture that extends. So it's like, I went to Quebec once and I was like, I don't understand anything.
well, one of my few regrets in life, my dad just wanted to take me and my little brother to the stadiums before they were gone. So, granted, I know Olympic Stadium's never going to go because it's never going to get paid off in Montreal. But he took my little brother and he asked me, if like it was like on a whim, like, yeah, you want to go to Montreal? It's like, not really. I think I just don't feel like it. And I guess they didn't have any problems up there. But again, that's a big tourist spot. No, if you don't know a little bit of the language when you're dealing with somebody like you're trying to get out for roadside assistance at 10 p.m., it's like, oh, geez.
And you look at some of the people who are like, oh, you don't speak any French? I hate you.
Yes.
Oh, like,
yeah. Oh,
like,
no,
I
nearly went to HR because I just went on a rant after somebody finished up with one of those calls. It's like, and they're not, they want to be, they're poser French people. Like, and like, then I get a message in the box, like, this employee here is Canadian. Okay, is she a Quebecois? I mean, like, I haven't said anything they don't think. So, but no, it's like we had a guy speaking Chinese to front desk at a hotel. I'm not in hotels anymore. It's like I'm sitting back and I'm trying to register it, and I just said properly enough pronounced, DN now, and like because I thought he said computer, like he needed a computer. It's like, okay, easy. No, it turned out he needed a kettle. So Mandarin's a tough language because every vowel has 4 tones. So if you read it, it's really not that hard to, like, as I say, it's not hard to speak. And I get that at Best Buy a lot of time where I work. Okay. So, and it's like, Russ, can you come over here? What do you need? You need to read their phone. Whoa. I said I speak the language.
Yeah.
Nothing about that. But no, I'd go and say, okay, all right. And then he's like, oh, you can understand me? A little. And then it eventually, like after we figured out, oh, he wanted a kettle, which kind of makes sense. The ends, anything electric in the language. And then he's like speaking to me in pretty good English afterwards, just because I made the attempt to speak their language. Like, so
I know. I wish I could just insert a chip in my brain that can help me to understand different languages, because I feel like my brain's just too mushy now to learn new things, even though I want to.
Yeah. Now, where are those earworms that Douglas Adams wrote about?
Yeah.
So
absolutely. So I'm just going to go off topic again for a quick second, because I just saw one of the reviews that I wrote down that I forgot about, and it's it's one of their albums. I can't remember which one it is. I didn't write that down, but they say it's the one that's the religious one,
right? What day did God create Spinal Tap, and should he have taken another day to rest?
Yeah.
Oh no,
one just made me giggle.
I was thinking more as a guy who's got 34 tattoos. It's kind of like, which album would I go and get tattooed on me? Like, I'm thinking, I'm leaning towards Venus. Oh, it was something to do with IVs and stuff. Venus,
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. There's intravenous
Intravenous Demilo, right?
And yeah, the second one was the Gospel According to
Spinal Tap, and then Shark Sandwich.
Shit sandwich. Sorry, excuse the language.
No, that's fine. No,
quote.
No. That's fine. It's like the only time this podcast gets in a lot of trouble is when we're have to discriminate F words. Like, yeah. I find the shorter F word to be more offensive than the longer F word. We're only talking a letter.
But, I think it's a testament to this movie, even the way we're talking about it, is it has just all these random scenes that are just random moments. And so it's just so easy to go back and forth and find these funny little moments that's like, all right, and then this part. It's like this and Monty Python and these kind of movies.
Yes.
Like every scene, I'm just like, this is my favorite scene. And then the next one, I'm like, oh, no, wait, no, scratch that. This is my favorite scene. And every time I'm like, no, this is it. Because the whole movie's just so funny.
Yeah. And we're getting to the, at least in my peripheral, we got the gig on the bass.
It's
one of my favorite stretches.
Which scene is this one?
They're on the Air Force Base in Seattle.
Oh, right. Just when you said bass, I thought of again like the Big Bottom scene and song, and they're all playing the bass.
Oh, they did that one on Saturday Night Live actually too.
Yeah.
Again, further selling like, oh, this is a real group, and like even their Simpsons performance, I still thought like, oh, why is there bloody puddles all over the stage? Look, boys.
Look, explain it to you. 6 nights out of 7, this is a hockey rink.
Well, this is a rock show, not a bloody.
No, and then he has to pause for a minute. Splish, splash show. He has to pause before he can think of that too.
Right. So I mean, again, going with the entire theme of there's I guess I should have mentioned the cameos like Terry Ladd and Duke Fame. It's like I can't remember his name, the guy's name. I know he passed recently, and he was best known, at least from my generation, as head of the class. I probably knew him better from WKRP in Cincinnati.
Howard Hessman.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like, I mean, this is a kind of it's like we really, it's just speaks to the illusion of the film that like, it's a spot and if it's a blink and you miss it type stuff, but it's like, but these guys are real, right? Yeah. It's the rest of the world that's fake. Which I think is a probably a detriment, I guess, to the Christopher Guest movies, since they're not on such large scales as Spinal Tap. It's like, well, obviously this isn't. I mean, yes, I could believe this definitely happens, especially in For Your Consideration. Like,
I still have to watch that one. I wrote that down, so I'm going to be watching that or trying to find it, see where I can watch it today, because I love all those movies. Like, it's so, considering like everything going on in the world and in life, it's good to have those movies that are just kind of wholesome in a way, that aren't too cheesy or too whatever. Like, it's just good, and that's what I love with Christopher Guest or Monty Python. It really, you escape so much, and you're left feeling good after too.
It does make me wonder, but going back to Monty Python, Rory, did they ever show the 4th season of Monty Python on MTV?
I don't know if they did.
Yeah, because
they probably did, because there's only so many episodes.
Right, but no John Cleese is no John Cleese.
Yeah, he's really a presence. He's very tall, so it's very noticeable.
Oh no, I want. Well, no. If it, well, I'm actually like, I think it's Jack Whitehead. Like, I was interested in the Clifford movie when I saw commercials. Like, Oh, Jack Whitehead. He's a comedian. He showed up on AEW Wrestling to give Bret Hart the world title to present. And oh, John Cleese. Oh, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm got it in my peripheral again. We're at the end of Party Tour, and David St. Hubbins about to give his big bit about. What do you mean the end? How can it be assessed? Like when this. But no, the thing I really dug about this scene was when we got to the saucy Jack.
You're a naughty one, saucy Jack.
It's like, yeah, no, I'd give up the band, give up Nigel Tufnell to. Which I'm surprised we didn't bring turning it up to 11 yet. Like,
yeah.
Which no, I get it, Marty, but no, it's the entire point you have. You can go louder than other bands. That's so yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but this one goes to 11. Just his deadpan chewing his gum. Just what are you talking about?
Oh, that's another bit I loved when they're just at a fast food restaurant. And, Nigel's got his gum on his finger. What are you doing that? Just put it on the table. I might forget about it.
There was one scene too with oh no, I think it's in the commentary because it's showing him kind of scratching his ear, and they're joking in the commentary. They're like, oh, you got an ear infection from that. And then he's like, yeah, and then I scratched my ear and then I put my finger back in my ear, so it's like a back and forth situation with the infection or something. Like the commentary alone, it's like worth just that in itself is like a second movie that makes everything funnier.
I'm further regretting getting this on $4.99 on iTunes. And no, I don't get all these commentaries. Like, granted, like I buy so many like Criterion movies here, and it's like, nope, it's just the movie. What's the point of Criterion if I can't get all the pictures?
Yeah, because they also have some deleted commercials that are for rock and rolls, which are like the pizza pockets. And it's like it just shows them. It's like a reenact where they're like going rock and roll, and they're trying to they like almost do the wrong turn, but they're like, oh no, we actually go that way. And it's just a quick clip, and then it just pans down, and then there's the pizza pocket sitting there, and it's like rock and rolls, and you're like, okay.
So I've been checking off most of my notes, and then it's like I mean, all the songs are hilarious, but the go-to song is tonight I'm going to rock you. And it's like, I mean, it's pretty much as offensive as anything Kiss, Ted Nugent, or anybody from the 70s wrote. But the second verse of it's like, but you're 4 feet tall, you're too small, and like, and you still have baby teeth. It's like,
yeah, whoa. And that's the thing I always talk about with people is like the back in the day and the references to, hey, little girl, hey, you're too young, this and that. And you're like, oh no, maybe they're also young talking about being young. And it's like, no, they're old men talking about being perverts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing I meant with how the Me Too movement had a hard time getting any purchase in the music world.
Yes, I mean, and on this podcast, I stood for a wrestler who, there's arguments about the consent of the situation, but his only offense in what they called speaking out in 2020, where a bunch of wrestlers got canceled, and it's like, okay, no, I mean, one, if they were two consenting parties, it was not statutory rape. It's like, this is like everything from the 80s, like, or even all the way up to the 2000s, old school, where we're cheering for Luke Wilson to get away. For everybody to forget about the fact he slept with a 17-year-old.
Videos online spoofing this sort of thing, how comfortable it can be to revisit 80s or even turn of the millennium films with what we know now.
Yeah. So
how much
and what like younger people had to go through, or what they were told to do on sets for things and stuff, like it's just crazy and like just I mean, not like
Oh no,
there's
like we all know the stories, about how hard Hitchcock and Kubrick could be on their actresses, but there's all these. But this happened on all kinds of sets.
Oh, and no, I again going back to my professional wrestling time and like getting to the bigger territories, and then oh no, and the guys who pretty much laid their money just for falling into barbed wire and hitting themselves with light tubes, and the stories about what they were doing in hotel rooms. It's like, yeah, no, never mind the fact I'm in the difficult, like it took me a few years to actually deal with it. Like, oh, I actually have speaking out stories for myself. Like, it's like, because I'm like, oh, we joked around about, guys. I was drunk and stoned, and somebody decided, like, oh, I'm gonna go and teabag him, and then one of my friends, the guys traveling with me, well, no, dude, that's gay, unless you get it on videotape. So allegedly, there's videotape of somebody shoving their package in my face, and it's
that toxic masculinity is just awful.
Like one time, I had a rough customer hotel guest who's just throwing his money around and stuff. No, take this. Like, I know you're drunk, over the top. I ended up getting punched at one point, and it's like, hey, I mean, I get it, not bad. And then I'm taking the other people who were with him. Oh, don't worry, I was in the wrestling business. Wilder shit's happened to me, and like what? And then it's like I'm gonna go right to that story, and it's like, oh no, that's shit you don't share with people.
It's so difficult to come out and share those things because also it's like so much stigma and so much like
and then it's like, okay, what if these guys have become good people since they decided to pull such bullshit? What if they grew up? It's like, I don't want to ruin their lives over it.
Yeah,
because that might not be the same person who dude.
But I think it's good to I like how the world, even if it's slowly happening, is kind of acknowledging more about mental health stuff and different forms of abuse, that it's not just if someone beats the shit out of you and you're in a hospital dying, that's the only way you're abused or affected by something.
Right.
There's a lot of ways that people are hurt or abused and can suffer, and it's good that we're coming out of it, because like with going back to how the musician stuff is and everything, like it's like, yeah, like you look at these people singing about young girls or the way these men treated women and stuff, like, or how people who are in positions of power, being in a celebrity position, how they use that to take advantage of people and stuff. And it's really sad.
Yeah.
And well, it's funny talking about people who thought Spinal Tap was real, because now with Cate Blanchett's new film Tar,
yes,
which is about this kind of person who abuses their power, a lot of people don't seem to realize this is not based on a true story. It's not a real person.
Well,
it's becoming a running gag on Twitter.
That's funny. We didn't have that issue back with Whiplash, honestly.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. So, oh no, we put a vagina on the twat, and well, I know that's very redundant. Like I'm a big person for desensitizing the C word, but I will not refer to a woman with by it. So it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, we put a vagina on it, then it's evil. Then it's a problem. It's like, yeah, I mean, original sin and all that bollocks. Like, but let's see, what were the specific reason why he was knighted was for founding of Hogwood summer camp for pale young boys. I always watch stuff with subtitles. I chew loud. What can I say?
I always have to have subtitles too for things. It's just like
lots of people do nowadays. They've written their whole articles online talking about why this is, and that it has a lot to do with how badly with more recent movies and shows things are mixed.
Yeah.
Oh no, honestly, it's crazy how it's like you have to turn up the volume and it's like when people are talking and then it's like explosion scene and like you're thrown off your couch.
Right. Yeah, it's funny though. I talk about Mandela effects when I didn't realize you were Canadian, Ronnie, and like, oh, the no, I mean, and then I'm looking on like Google, like, okay, every other English speaking country spells tire with a Y.
Well, I'm used to that because I watch Formula One a lot, and I'm always
Oh,
like, why do they what's going on? Is it because there's special types of tires? Like
yeah,
what?
no,
And so they spell it different?
yeah, no, and it's like, but it's like, there's times I'm in a movie theater and it's like, I guess I'm really paying attention because I swear I'm reading the dialogue underneath. The worst stuff though is watching old DVDs, and with this podcast being dedicated to sub 100-minute movies, my ex would grab a bunch of DVDs for me to watch, and it's like, and this one doesn't have subtitles. Oh shit! Like, do I watch it on Tubi or Pluto TV just so I can get those subtitles? I mean, I
take
love
time to write out the whole script on paper, and then you just hold it up as it's like playing.
Oh, well, it all depends on the screenplay because, like, I wrote I was writing scripts, and then I discovered no budget horror movies. It's like, well, screw that. Like, my introspective looks on the independent wrestling scenes. I'm gonna just write myself a zombie comedy. And then, like, you read certain scripts, it's like, and this character is of this height, and it's like, and then I'm reading True Romance by Tarantino. It's like, there's no character descriptions. Like, geez, common ground and such. So I guess, the movie is coming to a close with Nigel talking about being a haberdashery.
Right. And this is something I wanted to ask. Have either of you seen The Last Waltz?
I have not.
I have not.
The Last Waltz, for those who haven't heard of it, was Martin Scorsese's first concert film of any kind. It's the final concert of the group that was just known as The Band.
Yeah.
In 1976 or so. The movie came out in 78. And along with this big celebratory concert that has a ton of guest stars, like Neil Diamond shows up. It's often considered one of the great examples of documentary filmmaking, especially concert films. But the interview sequences, and this is Spinal Tap, a lot, and especially the delivery of the lines to the interview footage that's interspersed in The Last Waltz. And I knew going in, I learned that Marty DeBerge's name is a direct parody of Martin Scorsese's.
Oh.
I didn't realize, though, that the interview scenes are pretty direct parodies of the tone and timbre of what's in The Last Waltz.
That's incredibly
it's very
interesting.
funny to go actually see that film and realize so much of this is Spinal Tap's DNA is in that movie.
Well, if anything, this tells people need to watch This Is Spinal Tap now, because every documentary, at least sports related, is derivative of The Last Waltz. Yeah. You had Michael Jordan's The Last Dance, and then WWE did The Undertaker's The Last Ride.
Yeah. Well, SCTV did a one called The Last Polka that was about the Schmenji brothers. that style the title style has been in for a long time.
Right, but I mean, is that why Marvel's never going to name a movie The Last anything?
Could be. I don't know.
I mean, we're not gonna acknowledge Martin Scorsese.
I have so many interesting things now that I have to look up. I've been making notes. I'm like, oh my god, I have so many things I need to watch.
Right. Oh no,
Last Waltz sometimes shows up on Tubi. Criterion brought out a disc relatively recently.
Yeah, I was aware of that.
Not that hard to track down.
Okay, cool.
But yeah. So, all right. So we are now longer than the movie. Any other comments that notes taken? I mean, I've checked off all of mine.
There's just so much good stuff. Like, yeah, the songs. It's really hard
Oh no,
you
the
just go
songs
through all of them.
themselves are
So good.
I mean, it's almost like
Tell you how well known the songs are. Once, when Tom Bergeron was hosting America's Funniest Home Videos, they did a music montage of goofy on-stage rock and roll moments that they set it to "Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You Tonight." And in the intro to the bit, Tom's shooting the breeze with some people in the audience, and he asks, what Spinal Tap is, right? And the gal says, well, no. Well, that ends this conversation.
Yeah, it's
that's so good.
No, and I'm just looking at my screen on iTunes, like comedies. Like it's so yeah, I'll probably watch Top Secret next.
Oh, that's a fun one.
Yeah, it's just it right next to that, and that like it's a good script. Well, no, I'd say it's a good little 4-movie list, and then Valentine's Day, which was a freebie when I signed up for Vudu.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on something like that. I haven't seen it, but
Valentine's Day. Oh, no. Yeah. Like, but it's like Top Secret. It's like on that screen. It's Spinal Tap, Top Secret, and then Tropic Thunder in my collection, and then no. And then I look at the surrounding title. It's like, okay, you got Super Troopers 2. You got the Ted movies. There's Something About Mary. The movie directed by the Clueless director about vampires, Alicia Silverstone, Vamps.
Amy Heckerling.
Amy Heckerling, thank you. Then I got, Take It or Leave It. Surrounding this, I got Vicky Cristina Barcelona. I have. That's one of those tough things. Like, I know I need to watch Allen versus Pharaoh, but I really like my Woody Allen movies.
That's the thing. Like, when I first started watching some Woody Allen movies, the first one was someone had introduced me to. What's the one where it's Larry David and the younger girl, and he ends up.
I didn't see it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it made me question this person who showed it to me because they liked the movie. And the whole time I was like, but she's really young and he's much older.
That's just that's just I think that's the problem with Woody Allen, is he's such a brilliant storyteller. Like, I'm interested, but you got to step back and realize all his movies are autobiographical in some sense.
Yes.
So yeah,
very weird when you realize what came out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
all art is going to be problematic to some extent if you dig deep enough. But some are harder than others, and I understand if you really don't feel comfortable with it, you shouldn't feel obligated.
No.
Mm-hmm. Don't let anyone make you do that.
Well, no. For me, I guess it's more of the the judgment for people who are still like, well, it's still art. Like,
that's always a debate I'm talking about too.
Yeah,
it's kind of conflicting.
I hate to say Lenny Riefenstahl is one of the greatest cinematographers of all time because of what she was shooting.
When you read that in some college courses she's the only female filmmaker who ever gets brought up.
Yeah,
that they actually show any of her work. That's pretty dispiriting.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
kind of the way I think of it is I grew up finding, like, we had a handful of VHSs and stuff, and one of them was Bill Cosby himself, and I thought it was funny. Yeah, but then I grew up and it's like, what? I know what happened. That was a part of my life, but I don't touch that anymore. I don't need to have that in my life. So
you have to put it aside depending on how you feel.
I don't know. I guess with Woody,
it can be very frustrating sometimes to do that.
Yeah, well, especially with Woody Allen, because there's just some times where I need to see Gene Wilder drinking a bottle of Woolite to get over his. That's from the everything you wanted to ever know about sex, but were afraid to ask.
I am of the mind that that we don't take enough opportunities when it comes to problematic art to help boost profiles of creatives who aren't as problematic, who could use the boost. And who do similar stuff like Albert Brooks as opposed to Woody Allen.
Oh no, it's like, I don't know. Again, I guess it's a statement of the podcast. Let's go back to like everything under 100 minutes.
Yeah.
So we can do more double features.
Mm-hmm.
And hence you have to earn that second feature. Like the most famous is probably going to be My Neighbor Totoro was the B movie to Grave of the Fireflies.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Like,
I remember being like, what's happening inside me when I was a kid watching Grave of Fireflies?
Oh, that's way too young.
Yeah, it was like, ooh.
So, all right. So who would have thought Spinal Tap would bring us to modern day issues of artistry?
Yeah.
Which makes me feel comfortable as my older sister was talking about how Jim Carrey should have an Oscar, and I'm basically saying like if we, like I told her, if the Oscars were given 5 years later than the year that they occurred, yes, I could see that. But no, you're not going to beat Roberto Benigni in '98 for a Holocaust movie. And Kevin Spacey, it was just a matter of time when we were going to finally give him an Oscar for his lead performances.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, damn it, Kevin Spacey, you're so good.
Why'd you have to do that?
Yes.
Why?
Or at least, be contrary, show some contrition. Like, do the world tour, dedicate all your fun, your resources to preventing this stuff.
Yeah.
But then again, you could retire on those resources and never bug us again. So it's like, and you win either way. I guess that's just, or maybe I don't know. It's like probably the most fulfilling Kevin Costner death is just is a hindsight thing. Is watching L.A. Confidential. And then like, oh yeah, he was kind of a scummy person, and like that's what you get.
I echo like what Rory says. Like, I think it's just better to maybe focus energy on, it's like, again, okay, we had these moments, these things exist,
right.
But
let's
uplift the good people.
Yeah, there's a counter
world out there.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a counterpoint. Like it's might be a little too extreme just because of well, no, I don't think so. I thought Vamps was a fine comedy. Like for every Woody Allen movie you watch an Amy Heckerling one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean that's.
I just have one more thing to say about Spinal Tap. That's totally on another different topic now. But when I can't remember if it's at the end or if it was an extra scene, but when he's in the room wearing that black tank top with the skeleton, and he's
that's my
that's if you took away all my skin and whatever, this is what my skeleton would look like.
Well, it wouldn't look green.
Yeah.
Well, no, look, I mean the blood, like you see my blood, it's blue. No, that's a vein. Well, as they said, we're not the university types.
Absolutely.
Righty. Well, with all that said, I guess it's time to wrap her up. So if you want to, sorry to spoil all your promotion, Rory, but if you want to follow the most intellectual critic in all of Central Illinois, that's letterboxd.com/ThePoeticCritic. Anything else you want to push, Rory?
Not today.
All right. And of course, you got Veronica Vetter, the host of the Ramblin' Ronnie podcast. She does more than movies. Give her some. I mean, I guess I say it's like, well, it's basically woman stuff, true crime, and sorry to.
Well, I just always say at the beginning, like it's a place where I talk about true crime, unsolved mysteries, or whatever I feel like talking about, which usually ends up being like some couple little movie reviews. It's a little bit random right now. I'm still kind of figuring things out with
Hey,
it, but yeah.
You got the personality to carry it. I mean, that's
Thanks.
well, I mean, that's half of what podcasting is. Like, I know a guy who's like, so it's really just personality and marketing, eh? Like,
Yeah.
get yourself that thread, like start the podcast, get a few friends on, and then start selling merchandise.
Yeah, get the brand going and
Yeah.
reinforce it, blah blah blah. Do all the things.
Right. So
yeah.
But you can find her podcast on all the major apps. And of course, this is 90for Chill. You can follow me on Twitter at CatBusRuss if you want to talk trash about the podcast. I prefer it you do it there. And it's better than dealing with political stuff, which I'll still end up diving into. Like, I'd rather argue, I find more respect in a film critic than I do a Republican. So
I have difficulties sometimes with I have to hold back with how much I want to talk about political stuff because things piss me off, but you can't help it. Sometimes you want to have your voice heard. So
yeah. Oh no, I was spent two weekends in Chicago. The first was for KMFDM, and then when I'm at that show, KMFDM, international left-wing industrial rock band. And then I'm at that show, I see a poster. And next week, L7, legendary female punk band. Like, yeah, I guess I'm driving up here next week. So yeah, I totally understand that. Otherwise, rate and subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. 5-star reviews, preferably. You can be honest in those reviews. I'm just looking for the stars. So, it's like an Amazon review. Just give the number and then say some bullshit. Otherwise, you can, if you want to be on 90for Chill the podcast, send an email to rustthebus07@gmail.com. That's RUSSTHEBUS07@gmail.com. Offer me a movie, a theme, a director, an actor, preferably under 100 minutes, but I can I'd like to think I'm on that side of the line with clever and not stupid, so I can make anything work. Like, I will figure out how to do an Amadeus podcast here. So with all that said, thanks Stacia Hardin for still being my inspiration and keeping this podcast going, trying to make something of myself to honor her memory, and thanks for all the people you touched in your life. And I think that sums up all the formalities. Thank you very much, Ronnie, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks. Nice to meet you, as it were.
It's nice to meet you too. It's nice to meet you guys and hang out. Had a great
no,
time.
very cool. We finally gone international. I guess. Like,
oh yeah.
There's
what you talking about?
All right. Well, thanks everybody, and have yourselves a good week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Can I hear a wahoo?